Hey there. So, have you ever felt like you do something, and it's almost out of your control? But have you also felt like when these emotions take over you, you do things, and then afterwards, it's like, oh my God, like I can't believe I did that, right? Then this video's for you. See, for many years, I allowed myself to be controlled by my emotions and make decisions and do certain things that later, you know, I was like, why the heck did I do that, right? And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you a couple methods that I've used, not just only to control your emotions, because you really can't train your emotions, and that's something I want to talk about. But you actually start training your emotions and start training your thoughts, and not just seeing that your emotions are like bad or anything like that, which they're not. Your emotions are very important. However, you really want to detach from your emotions. So let me jump into it by telling you a story. Years ago, as a child, I was somewhat labeled like the emotional kid, right? The kid that, growing up, like if you would make me upset, I would just like hold it in for one, but then I will blow up. I mean, if you can imagine, you know, um, take like a soda pop. If you have a soda pop and you shake it, right, and then you would open it, like that would be me, right? I would just blow up like for any little trigger, right? And I'll talk about triggers too, but living a life the way I did for maybe more than half of my life, just like in full of emotions. What happens with that is that emotions are really the feedback for the things you're experiencing in the present moment. It took me a long time to realize that. See, in the past, what I would do is I would just think emotions like, let's say, I was stuck in traffic and some guy cut me off. So this is actually a true story. In high school, I had a friend and we were going to school and this guy cut us off. And for the life of me, I let my emotions take over and we just chased this guy, behind him. Like, gosh, it was probably like for like 40 to like 50 minutes, almost an hour. And this guy was just running away from us, like driving. And he probably thought like, who are these two crazy guys, right? But I was so emotional that when he cut me off, I was so pissed off that we just chased this guy. And then later, luckily, we didn't get into an accident or nothing like that. I mean, it was pretty close. But what actually had happened was I saw a school bus full of children that I almost hit because I was chasing this guy, right? Because he cut me off in traffic. How stupid is that, right? But again, what I realized was like that my emotions overtook my body, right? And that's what I want to talk about here is when you act in a certain way, when you do certain things, or even when you make decisions in a certain way, it's very important to really separate your emotions from it. Now, this took me a very long time to learn because, I was quote unquote the emotional kid growing up, right? And I will let anything from my external environment cause my emotions, and then my emotions control my body, right? Then they controlled my thoughts, my thinking. It was all impaired. And what that does is that makes us do things then later that we regret, like me chasing this car down, right, for the stupidest reason, and then almost actually crashing into a school bus full of kids, right? So one of the things that has helped me, and I hope that you can use it, is to really acknowledge that your thoughts are not you, and your emotions are not you. See, emotions are really created by your thoughts. And your thoughts, it's very important to realize that they're not you. If you ever, let's say, so I'll kind of continue with my example with that car accident, or with that when I was chasing that car down. What happened was when I was chasing this car down, in my mind, it was like, they're against you. Like, he just cut you off. Like, that SOB, how can he do this, right? It was a conversation in your head, right? See, a moment, a experience, something triggers some sort of thoughts in you. and those thoughts are based on something from the past, right? Because the way your brain works is it can only associate things, right? Like your thoughts are really, they're only based on your past, right? Something that has passed already, right? So it's trying to find a present moment and comparing it to something in the past or something possibly in the future, right? Like maybe something that happens right now is going to affect you in the past, right? So let me give you an example. So by me chasing that car, it associated, someone cut me off, someone made me mad. So they're attacking me, right? So it associated something in the past. But then when I saw that bus full of children that I almost hit, then that actually associates something in the future and said, oh my God, like what would happen, right? So then that kind of woke me up. But your thoughts are really the fuel for your emotions, right? What I didn't realize for a very long time in the past was my thoughts were fueled by my self-talk. Have you ever heard that term? And I'll create another YouTube video for it. But self-talk, it's probably one of the most important things that you can really start being aware of and really start managing, right? For me, it was to take a step back, right? When I would get all these emotions, right? What happens is it happens so fast, meaning the experience, right? That trigger for me, it was a guy cutting me off, right? And then it became an emotion. It became a thought, an emotion, and then a reaction in my body. It just happened so fast, right? I've done a lot of inner work, and one was I did hypnosis, and it was kind of like a past life regression. But what I realized is that my challenge was that there was no gap between the experience that I felt and then my emotion and then my response to it, right? So the guy cuts me off, I'm going to chase, right? It's very reactive. There's a lot of things that happen in between. And when you let your emotions take over, it's that you're not aware of all these different steps that are things that are happening between that life experience, whatever you're experiencing, and then your reaction to it, right? So one of the things that are very important that you want to start, if you are feeling that you do things kind of like out of your control or because you're like somewhat letting your emotions take over your body. For me, it was, I actually feel it in my body, right? Like I used to feel it in my body. Like I'll give you an example. Let's say if I felt being attacked by someone not doing something that I asked for, or maybe they told me something, I would actually feel my tips of my fingers or my feet, they get cold, right? And that's part of the flight, freeze, or fight response, right? Or the reaction, I should say, because it's part of our limbic system, it's part of our reptilian brain, but it's very primitive, but it's our self-protection, right? So that's what I feel. Then my heart starts racing, right? And then I know when I feel it in my body, right, I gotta take a step back and I gotta slow it down. Now, if you are feeling that, right, and then when you just react, the very important thing to kind of space that gap, because that's really what you want to do. You want to be able to space the gap between that experience that you have and then from your reaction to it. It's that. It's your breath. See, when you react on something, you're not present, right? Because your thoughts are creating something from the past or maybe the future, right? And then you react based on that. Your emotions are based on that. So what you really want to do is breathe. Now, one of the things that actually I had to teach myself how to breathe again. So years and years ago, when I started on this journey, when I first had my awakening, I realized that I was breathing incorrectly. And let me explain. There's two ways of breathing, okay? And this is the first thing that I really want you to catch when you see yourself, your emotions taking over you, and then you want to react, is you want to see how you're breathing. Two ways of breathing. Normally, I would say, the majority of people, and the majority of the time, we chest breathe, meaning we're breathing and now our chest just contracts and then it releases. Give you another example. When you're short of breath, right? When something now, the other side of breathing, right? And if you're a runner or if you exercise or maybe you do yoga, you might be aware of this, but it's belly breathing. And I'm gonna take a step back so you can actually see it. So move my mic here, maybe right there. Okay. So when you breathe, when something like that happens, when I felt like I was being attacked by, being cut off on the road, right? I was very reactive, right? And I was just breathing from my chest, right? And that's your fight, flight, or freeze mode, right? That's your reactionary, right? It's your defense mechanism. And the majority of us breathe like that. Now, what you want to do is you want to catch your breath, meaning deep breaths, right? But you want to make sure that your belly, so I'm going to go on my side here. When you breathe, you want to make sure that your belly goes up and down. Now, this took me a while. And if you're doing it already, great. And if not, you really want to focus where your breathing is. And the best way is put your hand on your belly and just breathe. And just make sure that your hand moves up and down. Now, when I breathe, I'm always moving my belly. I don't know if you can see it. I'm moving it up and down. That does a lot of things, right? Like you hear like in yoga and meditation, but the power of breath actually brings more oxygen into your body, into your lungs, right? And then that actually calms your nervous system, your reptilian, which is the oldest part of your brain, and say, hey, everything's fine. We have oxygen, right? Breathing in and out, and then it calms everything down, and you'll actually feel it. So maybe you're like me, or maybe not, but I had to retrain myself to breathe, to calm down, right? And the best practice is the count of 10, right? Years ago, when I was working at a job and I really wanted to start my business, I felt that I just needed to quit and need to react. And one of my mentors at the time said, look, Juan, take a deep breath, right? Count to 10, right? And so if you use 10, if you take 10 deep breaths using your belly, and again, it might take you practice to do that. Again, put your hand on your belly. It may sound easy and you might be doing this already, but we tend to forget. When we get reactionary and when our emotions take over us, it's when we forget the most basic thing is to breathe sometimes. And if you catch yourself, you'll see it that you're just breathing from your chest, right? And that is going to trigger other things, and it's just going to feed the thoughts and the self-talk and the criticizing and the attack mode, and you're just going to react, right? There is not going to increase that space between your experience and then your reaction. And your whole goal of this is to separate yourself from your emotions, is to create that length. And the way you create the length is you start seeing the trigger, which the trigger is something that happens in your life, right? The trigger, and then it's going to be the thoughts that get created, like that self-talk, like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening to you, Juan. Like, you must attack, you must, and then your emotions, you feel it in your body, right? Like my sensation usually is my heart starts racing, right? I get tight in the chest, and my extremities, my fingers, and my feet get cold because all the blood rushes out, ready to, run. And then sometimes I feel it in my belly too, the tightness in my belly as well. And my knees will get weak, right? It might be different. You might be the same, but your feelings, right? Then you start feeling it, and then your emotions come up, right? They might be anger, whatever they may be. And you want to start identifying these emotions, because the emotions are very important. The emotions are there they're your feedback. They're trying to communicate something to you. And then after your emotions, and obviously from there, then you act, right? But what I want you to work on is to separate those lengths. when you get, let's say, to the emotions and you start feeling, maybe you start feeling sad, right? What I'll do is there's a scale of emotions. And believe it or not, sometimes, if you've ever been depressed, and I've been depressed, several times in my life, sometimes anger is better than depression, right? So maybe you want to get angry, and so there's a scale of emotions, which I'll link in this video to it. So what I want you to do is start identifying and labeling which emotion you are experiencing, because awareness, I'm going to tell you, one of the most important things that's taken me a very, very long time to realize is that awareness is the key to your happiness. Awareness is a key to growth. Present awareness is the key to everything. If you're aware of the emotions that you're experiencing, they're trying to tell you something. You can pause that reactionary period, right? Before you act on it. Now, sometimes it's challenging in the beginning because it takes a while, right? From the guy cut me off, I'm pissed off, I'm going to go chase him like I did, which, of course, you won't do that. But I was very reactionary. I'm able to slow it down. Right. I'm able to slow it down. And there's different practices, meditation, that's something that I do daily. But journaling, there's other ways to kind of slow that down. But what I really want you to be able to start being aware of is that when you have some sort of trigger, which is some sort of experience, that guy cutting you off, maybe, if you run the business, maybe the customer gave you bad news, or, like your employee pissed you off, or, whatever it is, right? Your kids did something that it's a trigger event. And then from there, it's your reaction, right? It's whatever you physically do. There's a lot of steps that go in between, but what you want to do normally by default, it just happens like that. But what you want to do is you want to extend that time to start realizing this is the trigger. These are the thoughts I'm getting. These are the emotions. These are the feelings. And then now I can choose an action, right? That's the most important. One of the best ways is to catch your breath when that trigger happens, and then you start feeling something in your body, right? That's what I started doing. And then I started breathing from my belly. Just count to 10. And sometimes if you got to walk away, walk away. But as soon as you can take 10 deep belly breaths, you will feel that in your body just kind of calming down, right? And then another thing that I want you to start working on is to really, what am I supposed to learn from this? See, when an emotion happens in your body, there's something trapped in there. That trigger, that's why it's a trigger. It calls you to react in a certain way, and there's a lesson in there, right? There's something from the past, something that trigger caused some sort of reactionary, it's actually like a chemical reaction inside you through your emotions, and it's usually like for like protection mechanism, right? But it's usually bottled up emotions. Usually they're negative emotions. So you want to see what can you learn from that situation, right? Now, that is easier said than done. That does take a while. Journaling, for many, many years, I rejected journaling. I would start and I would stop. But journaling is another way that you can really start doing, really self-discovery and start, learning about yourself. But right now, I really want you to focus on is whatever that trigger event happens, and when you're going to react, if you ever catch yourself that you're going to react emotionally, I want you to pause and just make sure you're taking those deep breaths with your belly, right? And just slow yourself down, and then your body's going to calm down again, and then you'll have an ability to be able to act different, right? So again, the whole goal of it is whatever that trigger event, because something triggers your emotions, right? And then you act on it. You want to increase that period. It takes a little while, right? Because this is new to you, like it was for me. But the very first thing is breathing. And make sure, you might have to train yourself again. You might have to train yourself on how to, breathe again and put it on your belly. Right. So do belly breaths. Do at least 10 of them. Practice. The best way to do it that I learned and I run competitively. So this has actually helped me, that you want to breathe from your diaphragm is you lie down flat on your back, you put your hand on your belly and just breathe. So if you want to test like how you normally breathe, lie down on your back, put your hand on your belly and just breathe normal. And then you'll see your hand is either moving or it's your chest that's moving, right? Your goal is to start training yourself to start breathing from your belly. Even while you're speaking, you can actually move your belly. So I don't know if you can see it, but as I'm speaking, I'm actually breathing from my belly. And it's like going to the gym and working on a new muscle. There's new muscles that you have to work on and get stronger, but you can do it. But if you're very reactionary, you can calm yourself down by breathing, but make sure that it's belly breathing. So that's the first thing. I'll share more throughout my channel, but I really want you not to be like I was in the past and just, let my emotions take over and me not either I would react all crazily or I would just not do something, or I would freeze, or I would just force my emotions back in, right? And then, there's a little trigger, then poof, then I blow up. You don't want to do that, right? Because it's about self-management, self-control, and it's really self-love. So I hope you found this video useful. This truly changed my life, and be able to separate myself from my emotions and know that I'm not my emotions, and then start separating from the trigger to the way I can act, and really calming my emotions, right? By breathing. Do belly breathing. And I'll be sharing more techniques that I do as well. But again, I hope you found this useful. If you can, subscribe to my channel. I'll be sharing more things like this, or any comments, or any challenges or any breakthroughs that you found through this video, or even any comments whatsoever. I would love to hear from you. Thank you for watching. Wish you the best. Namaste.